Jag gör en kort liten introduktion, så egentligen så huvudtemat med det här, det är ju fortfarande att göra furu lika hårt som ek egentligen, så att, men det finns ju en del grejer kring detta. Alltså projektet handlar om att skapa ett värde för tall så att det fortfarande har en prisnivå så bland annat Sveaskog kan bevara de enorma förmögenheter som finns i skogen, så att säga. Så att det har varit lite så att tallen har dalat i pris gentemot gran, och projektet har ju egentligen gått ut på att göra någonting åt det hela. Och ett problem med furu, det är ju att det är för mjukt för att göra golv av, och våra nya skogar, de är inte lika stora och grova som de tidigare. Så vad kan man göra åt det här egentligen? Och ett av det är alltså att göra en miljöriktig process för att göra furu till ek, och att det ska då tillämpas på någon produkt. Och sen så ska vi också försöka titta på hur man ska göra, vad man ska göra av den klentimret vi har också, som har lite andra egenskaper än den gamla furan. Så det jag tänkte beskriva lite grann, som där en del av vi har suttit och diskuterat. Det gjordes ett försök på Jotos Timber att ta fram en ny produkt, ett regelvirke, fingerskarvat regelvirke av klentimmer. Och om man nu summerar det hela, så fungerade processerna både från skogen och hos Jutos, och de kunde göra det, men tyvärr så betalningsförmågan för det här var inte alls det man ville ha, så att det blev ingen fortsättning på det. Och vi diskuterade mycket inom Träcentrum Norr det här, huruvida man skulle göra det här eller inte. Det finns, Johanna har säkert varit involverad i sådana här projekt tidigare när du jobbar på Olle. Och så det finns ju lösningar på det hela, men det här det var ett försök i alla fall, och resultatet blev som det blev. Det går att göra, men det finns ingen lönsamhet i det idag, inte för det sågverket i alla fall. Så då lämnar jag över till Ben som får förklara vad han har gjort egentligen.
Yes, tack. Jag kommer ta det på engelska. Det känns lite enklare för mig efter att jag är så van att presentera på engelska. Och jag hoppas det blir bra. So here we see one piece of densified wood, one of my samples. And if we just take this one, and there you can easily see, so it's the surface densification. That means this area is extremely densified. So we have here like about 3 annual growth rings in the space where you usually have like 1. So we have like a 3 times densification, we can say, basically. But what's the idea with that? So if you look a bit at hardness, and we compare our furu or Scots pine with oak, then in the undensified stage you have something like this kind of relationship. So the oak is almost 3 times as hard as regular pine. Not quite 3 times, but almost. So the goal is kind of to reach that level by densifying the surface of Scots pine. And then the idea is, of course, if we look at the costs, there we also have more or less a relationship like this. So with densification, we can increase the hardness to the same level as oak, but keep the costs still below. Then, of course, we might have a very interesting product or material. And there we are thinking about applications such as wooden flooring, of course. Then actually today we secured a project with a quite big company that produces wooden windows, or roof windows mostly. And of course there's also some interest in the production of stairs. Because basically anything where you get a higher value in your product by having a harder surface. So this is basically how it works on a lab scale, basically. So you have a regular hot press with 2 press platens, and the lower one would be heated. And then the wood has a certain moisture content. And then by adjusting the process parameters in the correct way, like time and temperature, then we can reach densification in that area close to the surface. And also by controlling the process parameters, we can control a bit how high the surface should be and how deep it goes into the wood. But then we also tried, together with Sverrea Mefos from Luleå, one project where we tried roller pressing. And this is basically to kind of try if we can get closer to an industrial process, because I mean that's the goal at the end, to actually have a product that we can sell at a reasonable price and with good performance on an industrial level. And this method worked quite well in principle. So we were like, this is, maybe we are good on a good way. But we still need to solve one big problem, and this is the so-called set recovery. And this is basically that if you have the densified piece of wood here with the densified area, and you expose it to moisture, then it will basically swell back to the original state before densification, and then, I mean, you spend a lot of time and resources for nothing, basically. So this needs to be solved in some way. And this can actually be solved in some way. The problem is the existing processes, they either take a long time, we are speaking about multiple hours, or you need a closed system like a pressure chamber or something like this. And this of course makes it also difficult to kind of develop a fast industrial process. So what is the task? The task is basically to develop a densification process that keeps the wood stable, so reduces the set recovery or almost eliminates it, which goes very fast and uses an open system, which would be much simpler, of course, to implement. So then we were thinking, okay, what can we do? How can we actually attack this problem? And then I did a lot of research. And then if we look a bit into the chemistry of the wood, and we look at the cellulose, which basically gives the wood its strength, the problem is that with the existing methods of densification, it's almost impossible to soften this cellulose part. And the problem here is that we have those bonds between the cellulose chains. So this would be a cellulose chain and this would be another one. And then you have those bonds in between. So if we could cleave or destroy those bonds, then it would probably be possible to densify the wood, and it would not recover when it's exposed to moisture afterwards. That was the question, okay, how can we do that? So I did more literature research, and then I found so-called ionic liquids, which are basically liquid salts. So if you compare to natrium chloride or a regular cooking salt, which has a melting point at 800 degrees, then what we call ionic liquids is basically a salt that has a melting point at below 100 degrees centigrade. And as a salt, they're made up of ion pairs. So here we have the cation with the plus charge, and then we have a chloride anion with the minus charge. In this case, the natrium would be the plus, and here the minus. And those seem to work as a strong solvent. This one in particular I tested, and the short form of the name is BMIM chloride. You will see it later on in the results. So that was like what we wanted to try. And according to the literature, the mechanism that actually happens, apparently, we are still figuring out if this is actually true. So I hope we will get some results in the future. This is basically that the plus charged component of the ionic liquid will attach to the oxygen atom here, and the minus charged part to the hydrogen. That way it will cleave those bonds, and in this way our hypothesis was, maybe we can reduce the set recovery in that way. Then we had another idea, and this is so-called ionic superbases, and this is compounds like this. So they often have some nitrogen atoms in it. And if you combine, so they are very basic. And if you combine those with acids, you kind of neutralize that, and you also make an ionic liquid if you have the right mixture of both components. So that was also something, okay, let's try that, because those components, they are much cheaper than the other ionic liquid that I showed you on the previous slide. So then we had another idea, because this one you need to combine with the acids, as I told, to make ionic liquid. And you have acid groups in the wood. So then the hypothesis was, okay, if we only take this basic component, impregnate it into the wood before the densification, maybe we will form some ionic liquid inside the wood, which, of course, would make the process even easier because we don't need to make this mixture before. Okay, let's see what the results tell us. So this is a quick summary, and this was some densification at a really high temperature, 270 degrees. This was kind of the extreme case we tested. And the control group, that was basically like what I showed you in the first image with the hot press. That was just with moisture and maybe 150 degrees at in the press. And if you compress like that, then the set recovery will almost be 100% or like around 90%. It will never be 100%, but very close. But then I also tried densification without our ionic liquid treatment, but still at the high temperature. And then you get, of course, some effect of heat treatment. And this process is quite short. It takes like 1.5 minutes or something like this, depending a bit on the process parameters. And then, of course, you get the reduction. But it's still very much set recovery, 70% approximately. But then with our ionic liquids, so this was this BMIM chloride, the first one I showed you. This one is one of the super base ionic liquids, so the base combined with some acid. And in this case, we only impregnated the basic component and hoped that there would something happen in the wood. And we can see that we have a really strong reduction in the set recovery with this kind of treatment. So I think this is a very good result. Because the treatment in itself is very easy. It's just applying it before the densification with the something. I mean, I used the pipette. You can maybe use a brush as well. And then you wait a minute, and then you do this another time, wait a minute, do this another time, wait a minute, and then you do your compression. So it's quite fast. Definitely much faster than the existing processes that were researched. Okay, so this is a very good result. But what about the hardness, actually? So if you go back to that picture, if we do our like standards or previously existing densification process without any chemical treatment, then we basically can double the hardness. So it becomes 2 times as big as before, but it's still not quite as high as oak. But this chemical treatment has such a strong effect of softening the wood, so we can compress it even more at lower pressures, and we reach an even higher density, and now we actually are basically on the level of oak. So I think this is a very good result. And this is a Brinell hardness test. But it seems that actually like the surface hardness, so if you want to try to scratch the surface with your fingernail, it's even harder. It's virtually impossible to scratch with your fingernail to make a mark in it. So that's quite interesting. So just to summarize a bit, so we could almost eliminate the set recovery with this method. We created a very, very hard surface layer, and we can do this in an open system, and the process time is also pretty short. So what is lying ahead now? What should we do in the future? So right now we are planning to build some laboratory press that works in a continuous way. Instead of rollers, we want to use a band press, and we actually contracted a guy that, our company, that will design such a press for us, and I hope we can find some money to actually then also get the press built and move this research to the next level and one step closer to the industrial implementation. So, thank you very much.